My father goes crazy, watching family cut son and reveals hidden surprise from the assistant. The dining room was a battlefield disguised as a Boston mansion. Thick curtains muffled the storm outside, but inside, the tension crackled louder than thunder. Kara Mitchell stood stiff as ice, her fists clenched so tight her nails dug into her palms. The Mitchells, a family with a name echoing through the city's old brick walls, were used to control. Power was their air. Except here, tonight, it felt like poison. Her father, Jonathan, famous for his booming voice and sharp temper, suddenly slammed his silverware on the polished mahogany table. "That's enough." His voice was raw, trembling on the edge of madness. "You want to cut Kara off? After everything this family has done for her?" Her mother's eyes flashed cold, slicing through the room. "She's chasing fairy tales with that nonsense startup, technology and health data. We are a family of legacy, not geeks who hack code." The room fell into a suffocating silence, heavier than the velvet drapes. Relatives exchanged grim looks. Pity for Kara, disgust at her rebellion. Then, in the midst of this storm, her phone vibrated sharply on the antique table. Careful eyes drifted to the screen. Kara's hand was shaking as she picked it up. The screen flashed, "Secure Health." The valuation, $1 billion. The room went from icy stillness to a whirlwind of gasps and shocked whispers. "Wait, what?" Her sister Amelia breathed, her voice suddenly syrupy sweet, eyes narrowing like a cat hunting. "$1 billion? Since when?" Kara's chest tightened, the blood roaring in her ears. The weight of their doubts, crushing her moments ago, now flipped like a sudden storm. The boardroom princess turned schemer, Amelia, had already been eyeing their family empire's throne. This change in the game was dangerous, too dangerous. Jonathan sat back, his face a tangled mess of pride, confusion, and something darker. Fear? His assistant, silent until now, suddenly cleared her throat and dropped a bombshell. "There's more. Kara's technology has just secured contracts with major hospitals, but rumors say there's a security flaw. A real mess. It could bring everything down." A low murmur rippled across the room. Faces twisted. Loyalists shifting allegiance. Kara blinked, heart pounding like a drum in a war zone. Was this family, this lifetime of cold judgment, ready to celebrate or ready to pounce on her? Amelia, sharp as a razor, leaned in with a poisonous smile. "You think you can beat us with your little startup? This is our world. We hold the strings." Kara's phone buzzed again. This time a single message. "We need to talk. I know what you've been hiding." The words glowed eerily in the dim light. Her breath caught, chest tight, and every nerve in her body screamed. Who? What secret? Did this mean betrayal was closer than ever, or an unexpected ally? Outside, the storm raged louder, as if the sky itself knew this night was far from over. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The storm outside continued to clamor, drowning out the tension that twisted and turned in Kara's chest. Her heart raced as she stared at the message on her phone. Who was reaching out to her now? The air was thick as she felt the eyes of her family bore into her. each gaze a mix of curiosity, disdain, and, for the first time, something that resembled fear. "Kara, answer me!" Jonathan's voice cracked through the suffocating silence. The weight of his authority zeroed in on her, making her feel small. She blinked, trying to gather her thoughts. Her voice was barely a whisper, but before she could respond, another vibration cut through the heavy atmosphere. The alert was sudden, urgent. "I know about your mother." A chill swept through the room. Jonathan's face blanched, eyes flickering with confusion and rage. Amelia's smile curved dangerously, morphing into something predatory. "What do you mean?" Kara's throat felt tight, the message lighting a fire of dread. The assistant, poised and calm, suddenly looked like a deer caught in headlights. Maybe we should talk about this outside." "No," Jonathan's voice boomed. "We talk here, now. What's going on?" The air shifted. The dark mood thickened, like the storm clouds outside. "It seems like Kara isn't the only one hiding something. We all know the family recipe for keeping secrets." "What are you implying?" Amelia snapped, her tone sharp and accusatory, her carefully controlled demeanor cracking. "Just that your mother, she has ties with the startup." The assistant shifted, glancing nervously at Kara. "Ties that have never been disclosed." Kara's heart sank. "What ties?" The words felt like needles pushing into her skin. Her mother had been the bastion of tradition, a firm believer in the family legacy, not technology. "Years ago, your mother was in... enough." Jonathan's disruption was thunderous. He planted his hands on the table, his knuckles white. "You're not going to drag this family into your pathetic little drama over tech glitches and contracts." But Kara's hands trembled, realizing the link. This couldn't be right. As the pieces filtered through her mind, a sickening fear unfurled. What could her mother possibly gain from her success? What if it wasn't about support? "Kara, listen to your father," Amelia sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "This is your chance to crawl back to your comfort zone. You don't belong here." But before Kara could retort, the assistant spoke again, her voice steady yet urgent. "Kara, if you don't act now, everything you've built might come crumbling down. There are whispers, and before the night ends, the truth will out." "This is insane." Jonathan's temper flared, but for once, uncertainty clouded his expression. "And if it's true, why wouldn't your mother just tell us?" "Maybe she didn't want you to find out." The assistant's voice was low, almost a whisper. "What if she's been banking on keeping you all in the dark?" The air thickened with dread. The storm outside raged louder, as if nature itself was beckoning the truth. "Mom? Is it true?" Kara's voice was high, shaky. The sudden vulnerability stung like ice, but the silence that followed was deafening. And then came the sound. A loud crack, as if thunder had struck hard against the mansion. The lights flickered, plunging the room into an abrupt darkness. When they flickered back on, Jonathan was gone. A heavy front door slammed shut, followed by the echo of hurried footsteps against the marble floor that led into the dark of the house. "What the hell?" Amelia's eyes widened. "Where did he go?" "Kara," the assistant whispered, eyes darting toward the empty doorway. "This changes everything." The storm outside howled, as if echoing the chaos inside the mansion. Kara felt like her heart might burst as the tension built. She could see her mother's face, stone cold and unreadable, while Amelia wore a satisfied smirk, ready to pounce at any sign of weakness. "Where did Dad go?" Amelia's voice was sharp, cutting through the thick air. "I don't know," Kara snapped. But inside, panic churned. Had the argument pushed him to storm off? Or was this just the beginning of something worse? The assistant looked between them, her expression now cautious. "We should find him It's not safe. But before she could finish, a loud crash echoed from deeper within the house. It wasn't thunder. It felt like something had toppled over. Something heavy. Kara's heart raced. What was that? Amelia's eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Maybe... Without waiting, Kara dashed toward the source of the noise, almost stumbling on the polished floor. Her legs moved faster than her mind could catch up. The assistant followed closely behind, her face pale, wide eyes darting around like trapped prey. They rounded a corner, and the sight that met them stopped Kara cold. Jonathan lay sprawled on the marble floor of the den, unmoving. The tall bookcase beside him, once a bastion of family history, now stood like a broken sentinel, its shelves in disarray. Books lay scattered like fallen soldiers around them. "Dad!" Kara's voice broke, sheer panic gripping her throat. She rushed to his side, her fingers trembling as she reached for him. But before she could touch him, a heavy weight dropped in her chest. His face was too pale, the color drained. "Call 911, she shouted, desperation consuming her. Amelia stood frozen, mouth agape. What happened? I don't know," Kara cried, shaking her father's shoulder. "Dad, please wake up." The assistant moved quickly, pulling out her phone. "I'm on it." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wide with fear. As Kara's heart raced, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Amelia knelt beside their father, but her expression had shifted. "Kara, what?" The rising dread clouded Kara's thoughts. She could feel her world tilting. Amelia leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You need to look at this." Confused, Kara shot her sister a glare. "What are you talking about?" "His cufflinks," Amelia murmured, reaching for Jonathan's shirt. "Look." Kara's eyes shifted to the glowing silver links that sparkled in the dim light. Not just any cufflinks, they were engraved with initials. "What are those doing here?" "Maybe." And Amelia hesitated, uncertainty spilling into her confident facade. "Maybe they don't belong to him." The assistant finished her call, but paused, her gaze drawn to the cufflinks. "They are..." and... "Enough!" Kara barked, cutting through the tension. "This isn't the time!" But a sinking realization gripped her. Someone else was wearing them. Someone close. The pieces were shifting in her mind, like a jigsaw puzzle falling from her hands. You think Mom?" Amelia whispered, her voice trembling. The storm raged louder outside, drowning out the turmoil inside. With Kara's heart pounding, she realized that if it was true, everything she thought she knew about her family might be built on lies. In that charged silence, the air thick with secrets, another message buzzed on Kara's phone. "Get out now. It's not safe." Panic seized her. The truth was looming, and as she looked back at her father, a shiver coursed through her. Amelia's face was a mask of confusion and dread. "Kara, we need to leave." But they were trapped. The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest brewing within. With each heartbeat, Kara's reality shifted. What was the truth, and who could she trust? The storm outside pressed harder against the walls, a wild heartbeat echoing the chaos within. Kara knelt beside her father, the world around her cracking like ice beneath her feet. "Dad, please!" Her voice trembled with fear, her hands shaking as she tried to find some sign of life. The cold marble floor felt like a void pulling her deeper, each second a heavy weight pushing down on her. Amelia watched, her eyes darting between Kara and their father, a flicker of concern now woven through her ambition. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice barely breaking above the thunder. The assistant arrived, phone still clutched in her hand, her face pale as she scanned the room, fear mixing with urgency. I called for help, but she hesitated, eyes widening. We need to find your mother. She needs to know. Why? Kara shot back, panic sparking anger. What could possibly matter more than this? Kara, listen. The assistant leaned closer, urgency coating her words. I didn't want to say this in front of your father, but... But before she could continue, another message pinged on Kara's phone. The dread pooled in her stomach as she glanced at it. Your mother. She's on her way. You're all in danger. A chill snaked down her spine. What do you mean? Then, with a sudden creak, the door swung open. A silhouette appeared, drenched from the rain. It was her mother, hair slicked back and eyes reflecting fury. What's going on? I felt something was wrong. Jonathan lay still, and the frantic energy shifted, mirthing into a stillness that was unbearable. Call an ambulance, please, Kara pleaded, looking up at her mother. But instead of heading to her husband, she stepped forward, face frozen in a mask of shock. Then something else, something darker. What did you do? Her voice lowered, sharp as glass. Kara's heart raced. I didn't do anything. It was an accident. Then, another sound crashed through the chaos, a loud thud from the back of the house. All eyes turned, dread settling in deeper. What now? Amelia whispered. Stay here, the assistant commanded, and took a cautious step toward the noise, her bravado cracking. The air was thick, the tension curling around them like smoke. The oppressive silence was broken by a quiet yet forceful voice that emerged from the shadows. Unexpected, yet familiar. You didn't think I'd let you handle this alone, did you? Everyone turned. It was Noah, Kara's former business partner, entering the room with a confidence that felt out of place among the wreckage. He was soaked, but there was something in his eyes, a glimmer of mischief mixed with something far more sinister. Why are you here? Kara's voice came out shakily, soaked in confusion. Because you have something that belongs to me, Kara, and I always come for what's mine. Kara's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? For years, I've been the one backing you, protecting you, but you went rogue, and this family? He gestured dismissively to the chaos around them. They don't know your secrets. Not yet. What secrets? Jonathan's eyes fluttered, barely awake, as he tried to make sense of this new threat. Noah grinned. The ones that connect all of you to this tech venture. The ones that trace back to your mother's past. Time to pay up, or it all comes crashing down. What do you know? Kara's voice was desperate now, each word pressing heavier against her chest. More than you think, Noah replied, stepping closer. And I'll make sure everyone knows what really happened that night. Especially your father. The weight of his revelation hit like a tidal wave. Time seemed to stretch as uncertainty curled into the corners of the room. The storm outside surged, matching the fury inside. Kara, Amelia's voice slipped. What is he talking about? In that moment, everything shifted. The identities they thought they knew began to crumble. With each breath, the world felt bigger, darker, and more dangerous. Another message buzzed on Kara's phone, but she couldn't bring herself to look. Noah's presence loomed ominous, an anchor dragging them into unknown depths. Get out now, the words flashed ominously. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat. When they returned, a shadow passed across Noah's face, revealing a grin that twisted everything she thought was true. And then, everything exploded into chaos. The storm raged outside, its fury echoed in the faces of the people in the room. Kara's heart raced as Noah's words hung heavy in the air, twisting everything she believed. What are you talking about? She couldn't help but ask again, her voice shaking. Secrets. Ties to your mother's past. Noah stepped closer, a predatory glint sparking in his eyes. Everything you thought was solid is built on lies. Jonathan stirred on the floor, groaning softly. The urgency of the moment had everyone holding their breath, as if the very air had thickened with tension. "Someone call for help!" Kara shouted, panic bubbling over. But Noah's gaze was sharp, focused, as he might have been savoring the moment. "You don't even know the half of it. Did she ever tell you about the incident? The accident?" His words poured like venom, and with each syllable, Garoom felt colder. "Stop it!" Amelia shouted, voice trembling. "This isn't the time to play games." "Not a game, Amelia. A truth." Noah smiled, but it twisted into something darker. "What if I told you your mother was in the car that night? The crash that changed everything." The room fell silent, the weight of his words crashing down like the thunder outside. Kara's mind raced. "What crash? What are you talking about?" A spark of panic flickered in Noah's eyes. "You really have no idea, do you?" He pushed forward, a whirlwind of confidence shattering the fragile calm. "Your mother was responsible for that accident. She's been covering it up ever since." "Stop!" Kara screamed, feeling dizzy as the pieces began to scatter. "Her mother? Responsible? That can't be true." "It is, and now that you're building this startup tied to health data and technology, it's all coming back to haunt her. People will find out. Unless..." He paused, the threat hanging thick in the air. "Unless what?" Kara's voice trembled, raw nerves exposed. "Unless you play ball with me." The grip of his hand tightened in her direction, and his eyes gleamed. "I can protect you. Together, we could rewrite the narrative. But your family, they'll drown." An icy chill swept through Kara, cutting through the chaos. What was he really saying? The storm outside raged on, but inside her, a storm was brewing darker and more dangerous. Before she could process, another loud crash sounded from the back of the house. This time, it felt more sinister, almost like someone breaking something they shouldn't. Every head turned as another shadow appeared in the doorway, shrouded in darkness. "The truth is, I was never playing either," came a voice, low and menacing. It was her mother, stepping into the room cloaked in rain and fury. But this time, her demeanor was different. There was something sharp in her eyes. "You shouldn't have come back, Noah." "Mom?" Kara whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. "You think you can just waltz back into our lives and threaten us?" Her mother's voice quivered, but remained strong. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. We will protect our family." "Protect or hide?" Noah challenged, stepping forward, pushing the tension higher. The room felt like it was on the verge of explosion. Suddenly, Jonathan let out a pained groan again, a desperate plea for awareness. The flickering lights cast chaotic shadows on the walls, wrapping the room in an unsettling chiaroscuro. "I'm afraid it's too late for that," Noah smirked, leaning against the wall. "Your secrets are unraveling, and you're all about to pay the price." With a sudden flick of his wrist, he revealed something shiny in his palm, a locket. It glinted ominously. "That belongs to you, Kara," he taunted, "and it's connected to everything." "No," she breathed, gut-wrenching. Before she could lunge for it, everything exploded into chaos. The locket slipped from his fingers, spiraling through the air like a harbinger of doom. The room erupted with noise as Jonathan stirred, the storm colliding with their unraveling reality. "Kara, get out!" her mother screamed, voice raw with urgency. But before Kara could answer, the locket shattered against the floor, sending shards of deep, dark truths spiraling into the air. It felt like time slowed. A sense of dread washed over her as the pieces scattered, each one echoing secrets that could alter everything they thought they knew. In that instant, the air crackled with potential disaster, and the truth they had all been clied. Amelia screamed, horror shuddering her voice. But it was too late. The storm was no longer just outside. It was right within their very hearts. And as Kara stared into the abyss of what had just been unleashed, a new realization dawned. Some secrets were more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. And in this moment, everything changed. The shards of the broken locket glittered like ominous stars, scattered across the marble floor as panic dripped into the air. Kara's heart thundered in her chest, the reality around her fracturing like the delicate pieces beneath her feet. "What have you done?" she gasped, fury and fear crashing inside her like waves. Amelia's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and dread shaping her expression as her gaze darted between Noah and their mother. "This is insane. You can't just throw accusations like this without proof." But Noah's smirk only grew. "Proof? Isn't it that what you're all after? The truth?" He gestured toward Jonathan, who lay unconscious on the floor. "You think any of you can escape what's coming?" "I'll call for help again," the assistant urged, her hands trembling as she fumbled for her phone. But her eyes were glued to Noah. This was not the time to ignore the threat standing before them. Then, as if the storm outside knew how tense the atmosphere had become, a sudden clap of thunder shook the house, louder this time, as if announcing something sinister. The lights flickered wildly overhead, the flashes illuminating Noah's eyes, hungry and ready, as if he felt the power of the storm echoing in his veins. "Your mother and I, we have a much deeper connection than you realize, Kara." Noah's voice dropped to a low hiss. "She's been playing you all along. This startup, it's nothing but a pawn in a much larger game." Kara felt a tightness in her chest. "What game?" she demanded, refusing to back down, every fiber of her being pushing against the tightening vice of confusion and disbelief. Noah stepped closer, invading her space. "You really think your family is this powerful legacy? No. Your mother has been protecting her own interests, and now it's crashing down because of you." "Shut up!" Amelia's voice snapped, defense spilling out in every word. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Noah laughed softly, with a chilling edge. "I know everything. The truth is uglier than you could imagine. And her accident, it wasn't an accident at all." A tremor ran through Kara as the implications sank in. "What do you mean?" "Everything you hold dear. It's built on lies, Kara. Don't you see? There's a reason your mother's been dodging questions. There's a reason she's been so tight-lipped." Before she could respond, another crash echoed, this time from upstairs. A heavy thud, followed by scuffling sounds that sent a shiver down her spine. "What is that?" she whispered, feeling the walls of the house close in around her. "Maybe it's someone coming to back me up," Noah taunted. "Or maybe it's something even worse. How long do you really think you can keep your family together when everything is crumbling around you?" Without warning, the door at the end of the hall burst open. A figure stumbled in, drenched from the rain, hair matted to their face. It was her mother, but she looked different. Gone was the icy facade. Now fear etched deep lines across her forehead as she scanned the room, desperate, eyes locking onto Kara. "Mom, what's happening?" Kara felt a knot form in her throat, everything swirling in chaos. "Get out!" her mother cried, panic flashing. But something was off. There was vulnerability layered within her command. She wasn't only afraid for Kara. Was she afraid of something behind her? Why? Kara's desperation clawed at her heart. She needed answers. Then, a loud crash came from the back of the house, shaking the very foundation. The walls trembled, dust raining down like tiny particles of their hidden past. The lights flickered again, plunging them into another abyss of darkness, only to reveal a figure standing at the threshold. A stranger. A man, tall and menacing, emerged from the shadows, eyes locked on the chaos, his expression a blend of glee and malice. "Hello, family." His voice was taunting, echoing through the room like haunting whispers. "I believe it's time to unveil the secrets." The air thickened. Whatever secrets were buried deep, they were about to claw their way to the surface, and with it came the undeniable truth. Everything they thought they knew slipped away like sand through their fingers. Was this man the key? And what if this was the very purpose of Noah's sinister game? As the storm howled outside, Kara felt her world tilt dangerously. "Who are you?" she questioned, voice trembling, unsure whether she wanted to know who stood before them. But his smile curled upward, a wicked promise. "Let's just say I'm here for the truth. And it's going to hurt a lot more than you think." With that, the reality of their tangled lies twisted tighter around them, each breath a struggle against the impending storm, both inside and out. The man's smirk twisted, throwing the room into deeper chaos. "Hello, family," he sneered, his voice like ice cutting through the hot air. It was as if the walls were closing in on them all. Tension crackled. "Who are you?" Kara demanded, her heart racing. The fear was palpable now, each person holding their breath, the weight of their secrets swirling around. He stepped into the light, and suddenly Kara felt a jolt of recognition. "You," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper, as everything around her ceased to exist. You're the one from the news, the scandal." "Ah, finally, the memory kicks in," he said, an amused grin curling on his lips. "Yes, I bet you've heard a lot of stories about me, the infamous Michael Hartman. You could say I was entangled in your family's affairs." She took a step back, confusion crashing over her. "What do you want?" "Want?" He chuckled darkly. "I want everyone to face the truth, starting with why your father is lying on the floor. And trust me, it's not just from a heart attack. Someone wanted him gone. Someone who knew his secrets all too well." Panic clawed at Kara's chest. "No, it can't be my father." "Is that really what you think?" Michael leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "Secrets are powerful things, especially when they involve betrayal and fear. This family has been hiding things for far too long." Another crash echoed from the back of the house, but Kara barely registered it. Her mind raced. "What have you done?" she whispered, the air thickening around her. Michael's gaze flickered momentarily to her mother, whose face had paled. "She's the key, really." He turned back to Kara with intensity. "The reason I'm here tonight isn't just for your father. It's because I know what she did, all the way back then." "What are you talking about?" Amelia shouted, trying to break the tension. "This is ridiculous." Suddenly, Noah stepped forward, a glimmer of understanding shining in his eyes. "Wait, you knew about all this? You were involved?" Michael laughed. "Involved? I was the one who tried to save us all." He looked straight at Kara's mother, contempt dripping from his voice. "But when I stumbled onto the truth, she did everything to shut me up." Kara's heart raced. "What truth? What did she do?" Another crash rang through the house. It was closer this time, like footsteps pounding through. Fear slammed into her. Suddenly the lights flickered again, and the room seemed to shift as if the shadows were alive. Then came the sound, a sickening gasp, followed by a thud, harder and final. Time hung still. "Mom!" Kara cried out, turning toward the sound. The realization clawed at her that they were not alone. Someone else had entered the house and had made themselves known. What was that? Jonathan stirred, finally pushing himself up. Disoriented, shock twisted his face. "Mom!" Kara screamed again, darting past Michael, desperation surging like wildfire. She shoved the door open wider, heart pounding in her ears. But everything froze at the sight. There she was, her mother. Standing over the crumpled figure sprawled motionless on the floor. You could barely hear the storm raging outside. It felt like a world apart from the chaos that engulfed them. The darkness of the room was pierced by the pale light reflecting off the walls. And then Caroline's expression changed, morphing into something unrecognizable. Sudden horror and dawning realization washed over her. "Who is that?" Kara barely whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Michael grinned, darkness swirling in his eyes. "I told you, secrets can bring down empires and ruin lives." That's when the figure on the floor shifted, a soft groan escaping its lips. It was a face Kara had not seen in years, a face that belonged to the very roots of everything that had once been normal. "Kara." The voice was weak, but the connection was electric. "Dad?" And as he struggled to sit up, an old photograph slipped from his hand, floating down like a feather. It caught the light, revealing a hidden past that linked them all. A past entwined in ways they never imagined. In the light of that moment, the truth brutally unfolded. Everything they thought they understood began to shatter. Relationships would never be the same. They were standing on the edge of an abyss that promised to swallow them whole. And then the ground beneath them trembled. A louder crash echoed through the house, shaking their fragile. Would they survive what was coming? Or would it tear them apart forever, laying their darkest truths bare for everyone to see? The figure on the floor stirred, drawing everyone's attention like a magnet. Kara's heart raced. She wanted answers, but what stared back at her was wrapped in a shroud of mystery and fear. The room seemed to tighten around her, the air thick with secrets. "Dad," she breathed again, moving closer. His eyes were half open, struggling to find focus. "Please, just wake up." But the way his eyes flickered toward the shadows spoke volumes. The fear was evident, like a weight pressing down on him. The once proud Jonathan Mitchell now looked vulnerable, a man crumbling under the load of hidden truths. "Get him help," Amelia cried again, her voice rising. It was a command mixed with desperation, each syllable bouncing off the walls. Then there was a sudden silence. The storm outside raged, but within these walls, time halted. Michael's smirk faded, replaced by a hard glare. "You're running out of time, Kara." "Shut up," her mother snapped at him, her voice sharp, but her attention shifted back to Jonathan. "What happened to him?" "He's playing a part, just like you," Michael shot back, his tone cold. "No," her mother interjected, hurt, flashing in her eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about." And then came the crash again, this time closer, more urgent. Someone had pushed a door hard enough to knock it off its hinges. It swung open abruptly, and all eyes toned. Standing there was a police officer, uniform glistening from the rain. "Is everything all right in here?" "Thank God." Kara rushed toward him. "We need an ambulance. My dad is hurt, and—" "Stay back!" the officer commanded, scanning the room. The moment shifted. Something electric racing through the air. "What's going on?" I don't know. He collapsed." Kara's voice trembled under the weight of panic. But as she spoke, something shifted in the officer's demeanor. Who is he? The officer asked, stepping closer to Jonathan, crouching down. Jonathan Mitchell, her mother exclaimed, stepping alongside the officer. He needs help. But the officer didn't react. Instead, his eyes widened. Jonathan Mitchell, the tech entrepreneur? Yes, yes, please, Kara pleaded. But there was a strange weight behind his gaze. Ma'am. His voice had turned cold, clipped. You need to step aside. What? No! He needs help! But her voice faltered as he reached for his radio, the tension spiraling up like a balloon filling with air. Then came another slam. But this time it was a different sound, like something heavy dropping to the ground. What's happening? Amelia whispered, fear creeping in. The officer's face darkened. Everyone stay back, he ordered again, as two more officers walked in behind him, their presence dominating the room. Is this a joke? Michael's voice dripped with disbelief. What's going on? The first officer moved to Jonathan, checking for a pulse. Sir, can you hear me? Silence enveloped them. Every heart beat in time with the storm outside, fungering under the weight of unspoken fears. It feels wrong, Kara whispered, eyes darting from her parents to the officers. Something was off, more than just her father's condition. The unease rolled through the gathered family like ripples in a pond. Get her out, one of the officers said suddenly, eyes narrowing at her mother. You have the right to remain silent. The world cracked open at the words, a thunderous clap from above that almost echoed in the room. What? No, not her! Kara's voice lifted, panic rising. But as the officer continued, everything blurred. We have reason to believe your mother is involved in illegal activity related to corporate fraud and threats against your father. A cold breath gripped Kara's chest. The storm outside mirrored the tempest of shock within. What are you saying? She's innocent. Jonathan stirred, his eyes fluttering open, but he seemed confused. Kara, he muttered weakly. Dad, stay with me. Tears threatened to spill over, but the rush of adrenaline held them back. But it was too late. Her mother's face had twisted into something unfamiliar, almost feral. You don't understand, she shouted. I did it to protect you. The revelation sent a shockwave through the room. What do you mean protect? Amelia gasped, stepping back. Protect from what? Kara asked, heart pounding like a drum. Before her mother could respond, the officers moved forward, their expressions hardening. You're under arrest. Kara's world fractured. With those words, everything she thought she understood shivered into dust. The storm reached its peak outside, thunder crashing like a warning bell. As the officers pulled her mother toward the door, Kara felt a fracture. Her heart split between love and betrayal. Her mother's eyes, once filled with warmth, now bore the weight of buried secrets. The officer paused, turning to Kara, voice firm but softer than before. We'll get him help, he assured. But she barely heard him. Mom, wait, what are you hiding? The reply echoed in silence as the officers dragged her away, leaving Kara standing there, raw and exposed. The truth hung thick in the air, something heavy cloaked in everything they had built. Then it struck her, like lightning. Had it all been a lie? The house had grown quiet, but Kara's heart thundered. As the officers led her mother out into the storm, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. The night had only just begun, and as she looked around the room, she sensed more shadows lurking just beneath the surface of their broken family. What would she uncover next? And who could she trust now? The chaos clung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Kara felt the walls closing in around her as the officers led her mother out, tightly gripping her arm. Her heart thudded painfully. Mom! she screamed, desperate tears pooling in her eyes. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "Kara, I did it for you," her mother called back, voice laced with panic and desperation. But each step her mother took felt like a betrayal, twisting the knife deeper. That connection they once shared was fraying. Then came the thud again, more pronounced, echoing off the walls. "What now?" Amelia murmured, glancing back toward the sound, her expression unreadable. Kara felt the dread pooling in her stomach again. "Just stay with Dad," Kara shouted, turning away from the doorway where her mother had just disappeared. She refused to let this escalate further. They needed to focus on Jonathan. But even as she pushed aside her worry, something shifted in the air, a tension that felt almost electric. Michael stood there, grinning smugly. Every part of her wanted to lash out. His presence was like a wasp buzzing around her head. "You think this is the end, Kara? You're just getting started. You don't know anything," she spat. But deep down, she was afraid he was right. Everything was unraveling too fast. Then Jonathan stirred again, his eyes fluttering open, confusion clouding his features. "Kara," he croaked, reaching out, as if she were a lifeline in a storm. "What's happening?" "Dad, just hold on, help is coming." But before she could react, Michael stepped closer, that damn smirk growing bolder. "I wouldn't be so sure, Kara." He leaned in, whispering conspiratorially, like they were in a private conversation. "The truth. It's not what you think." "Stop it!" Amelia shouted again, stepping into Michael's space. "You are not helping." But her voice drifted into the background as an unexpected sound cut through the tension like a knife. A loud crash from the hall. The door slammed open wider than before, revealing a dark figure shrouded in rain-soaked shadows. There was a moment of silence, heavy and taut, before Kara realized who it was. "Marcus?" she breathed, disbelief flooding her voice. Marcus, her long-lost brother, stood there dripping water, a wild look in his eyes. The family had not seen him in years. He was supposed to be gone, lost. "Kara!" he yelled, stepping into the room, breathless. "You need to get out of here. It's not safe." "Not safe?" she echoed, feeling whiplash from the turn of events. "What do you mean? Will everyone just stop shouting?" Michael's tone dripped with annoyance, but the curious flicker in his eyes showed he hadn't expected Marcus either. But before anyone else could speak, the back of the house exploded inward. Wood splintered, and smoke billowed through the doorway, flooding the room with a choking haze. "What the hell?" Amelia cried, shielding her face. And then it came. To their shock, a figure burst into the smoke. A man wielding a hammer, like a twisted knight from a nightmare. He moved with purpose, eyes darting around, surveying the chaos he'd landed in. The officers raised their weapons, voices echoing demands, but they barely registered the tension as screams filled the air. "Get the hell away from them!" Marcus shouted, stepping between them and the attacker. The atmosphere shifted. Everyone seemed caught in a stasis. The hammer swung again, and in that moment, Kara saw it all. The connection forged through years of family secrets. The lies they had wrapped around themselves tighter than any embrace. She felt Marcus's presence like a warm glow against the cold storm brewing outside. "Out, now!" Marcus yelled again, grabbing Kara's arm. "I'll explain everything later. But we need to move." Jonathan paused, confusion still heavy in his eyes. "Marcus, I thought you were—" "Thought I was what?" Marcus interrupted, eyes fierce but protective. "Lost? I made mistakes, but that's not important right now." Before another word could form, the darkness swallowed them whole, the walls shaking as if the whole house protested against the chaos it contained. As they stumbled into the cold air outside, a revelation hit Kara, a realization so powerful it shook her to her core. They were all tied up in an ugly knot, pulled by the strings of deception. But this new threat revealed just how deep the lies ran. Could trusting Marcus be the key? And what about her mother, now wrapped in her own web of secrets, likely in even deeper trouble than they realized? Everything she thought she knew twisted into darkness. As the storm raged around them, they were left standing at the edge of everything. The churning emotions, the tangled past, ready to go deeper. What were they about to uncover? And who was the real enemy lurking in the shadows? With every breath, uncertainties spiraled into dread, leaving them standing on a precipice, fraught with fear and new possibilities. The storm raged, rain pounding down like fists against the pavement. Kara gripped Marcus's arm, her heart racing as she breathed in the chaos around her. "What do we do?" "Get to the car!" Marcus urged, a fierce look in his eyes. But the way the shadows twisted in the night felt wrong. They could run, but where would they go? Who could they trust? Before they could step away from the house, a loud crash echoed from inside, the sound of glass breaking. The weight of uncertainty clung to them. Had something shattered, or was it a signal of something worse? A shiver raced down her spine. "Kara! Marcus!" Amelia called, her voice wavering. But as they glanced back, the sight of the shattered doorway grabbed their attention. Smoke curled into the air like a serpent. The air grew thick, suffocating with secrets. Marcus grabbed Kara's hand. "We need to stick together," he said, urgency lining his voice. But something in the way his eyes flickered made her uneasy. What had he seen that she hadn't? They churned through the chaos, the world around them a blur of darkness and fear. Just as they reached the front steps, another figure emerged from the shadows. Michael stood there, an eerie grin plastered on his face. "What's the hurry?" he sneered, and the delight in his eyes sent an icy chill through her. "Get out of our way!" Marcus shouted, shoving past him. But Michael moved gracefully, blocking their path. "You really think you can escape? There are things you don't understand." "Enough!" Kara yelled, trying to push through. But the tension snapped as the officer's loud voice echoed from the doorway. "Step aside! Back away!" The officer motioned with his flashlight, stepping into the chaotic intersection of fear and uncertainty. That's when it happened. A sudden, piercing scream shattered the night. It echoed from inside the house, cutting through the storm like a knife. What was that? Marcus's expression twisted into one of horror. Only then did the truth hit her. What if they were in over their heads? What if their family wasn't right? The scream faded, replaced by heavy, shuffling footsteps. "No," Kara whispered, her voice trembling. "This can't be happening." Suddenly, her mother burst through the smoke, eyes wild. "They're coming for you!" she shouted, panic radiating. "We have to go, now!" "Who?" Kara demanded, confusion dancing on her chest. "Everyone! Everyone's here!" In moments, a wild figure appeared behind her mother, shoving her way through the door. It was an old friend of the family, Detective Reynolds, his face lined with urgency. "It's true. I wasn't just here for your safety. It's worse than I thought." "What do you mean?" Kara fell back, each word quote like a bullet. "They're targeting your family. They want everything that's inside this house. You don't understand what you're up against." But then, out of nowhere, another crash ricocheted from deep within the house. Then, a series of loud thuds followed. It was as if something was tearing through the walls. Panic seized her. "Dad!" she shouted, forgetting everything else. "Kara, we have to move," Marcus yelled, gripping her tighter. And then, just as she thought it couldn't get worse, the ground beneath them trembled. An explosion sounded from the back of the house. A burst of fire, lighting up the night, like a volcano erupting. Get out. Now! Detective Reynolds roared. Everything exploded. Shards of wood and glass scattered across the front yard like deadly confetti. "Mom!" Kara screamed, spinning to find her mother. The flames danced behind her, illuminating her terrified face. There was a moment, a heart-stopping moment, where their eyes locked. A knowing passed between them, a memory, a connection, a love that held them together even through the fire. But just as quickly, everything changed. As the fire illuminated the chaos, her mother crumpled to the ground, revealing a glimmer of metal, a gun. "Mom, why do you have that?" Kara's voice broke, her heart racing. And then came the shocking revelation, a truth that shattered everything. Her mother looked up at her with wild eyes, something stripped bare. "It's not what you think, Kara. I didn't want you to find out this way." The horror filled the air. "Find out what?" But before her mother could explain, more figures emerged from the smoke. Unknown men, cloaked in desperation and rage, wielding weapons of their own. "Run!" Marcus shouted again, pulling Kara away as screams erupted around them. In the swirling chaos, everything Kara had believed shattered. As they stumbled away, the shadows loomed larger, the danger more intense, and in the eye of that storm, she felt the grip of fear and betrayal. Who was her mother really? What secrets had been hidden in the walls of their family? As they dashed towards the safety of the street, a final breath echoed in the wind. The night is just beginning, leaving her haunted by the questions that would forever alter the course of their lives.